This retreat is to enable beings who recognize the apocalyptic nature of the times that we are in and the rapid escalation of the seemingly catastrophic events, to have a shift in their evaluation and assessment of the meaning and significance of those events and the requirements of our spiritual development in order to be in harmony with the will of God that is being expressed through those events. So we need to understand their meaning, the inevitability of the situation we are in, the fact that we are all co-responsible for this, and the fact that it is indeed, as all the religions have prophesied, predicted, and warned about, is the most auspicious moment in human history, in the cycle of time, in the unfoldment of the implicate order into the explicate. And so, in what way is it auspicious? You know, that societies are decomposing before our eyes, massive deaths, horrid wars, and every other kind of catastrophe. There's far more than 4 horsemen galloping now. You know, there's hundreds of different cavalry of the angel of death that are on the road. How do we face this in bliss? And the only way we can do that is to recognize that we are in fact returning to God. This has happened because we have lost touch with that ultimate reality, and we have lived for unworthy, narcissistic goals, and have become cynical and unloving and uncaring for each other and for nature, and for the ethical sustenance of a social order that values virtue and sacrifice and goodness and truth and love. And because of that, and because of the lack of care that each of us have had because of our own obsessions with our own enjoyment at a personal level, and not taking responsibility for the good of the whole, the world has come to this point. But in this very moment in which there is such cynicism and loss of faith, not just by Jews and Christians and Muslims, but Buddhists and Hindus and all the religious traditions have lost their essential power pretty much, at least at an institutional level. It's at this moment that the return of God and to God is required. And since the world is nothing but the expression of God, the world as an ignorance of God must become aware again of our unity. And the only way that can be done is that if our identification with matter is released. And that will happen by matter itself disappearing and the world becoming pure spirit. And so this is the quickest way to end the suffering that everyone is already in, and most of the world has been suffering for a long time already. But now it's hitting the West, and it's hitting the so-called developed countries that have only developed cynicism and imperialism and ego, not developed their spiritual nature. So now it is the will of that supreme intelligence and love that is bringing an end to the suffering and a return to the source, so that the world, which is a dream, can be redreamed without any of the evil, any of the dark forces being present, and a total purification and cleansing of consciousness, and a freeing of every consciousness from its bondage to the ego. So what we want to do in this retreat is to go first in freeing ourselves from that bondage so we can have an effect on the planetary noetic field to help as many souls as possible to face with courage and with joy these events, and not be in a state of terror and suffering and agony as the ultimate culmination approaches, and to accept everything without grief, and also without any sense that something wrong has happened, because all of this is part of the perfection of the whole. And when we are in that ultimate consciousness that is the creative intelligence of God, we will really appreciate the beauty of this ultimate denouement of world history, and not see it as a horror, which is the natural way that the ego looks upon this kind of an event, but instead we'll recognize it as the moment of our resurrection and redemption into pure spirit.